This time on Woody's garage. That big shaft has a nice groove.
Okay, the other line's established. Got to get that center bit out. We're still not down to depth yet either. Using this piece of wire kind of as a depth gauge. That's how deep it is out here. Well, it's hard for me to see because my eyes aren't very good. But I think we're pretty close on both sides to the depth. I gotta see what I can do to get rid of this piece. This whole process is very odd on your perceptions. I mean, sometimes you look at the Dremel and you think, oh, it's just a toy. But no way. And then you think of this crankshaft as being the hardest steel in the world. But, I mean, look at it. I can friggin' bend it with this thing. It's kind of weird. I want to try to get this bulk of junk out of here if I can. And not with a Dremel because I don't know how I'm going to get down on that. I don't want to start getting wild and making jabs and stuff. You know, it'd be great if I had a little metal chisel. It was 1/4 inch, but I don't have one. Yeah, we cut off the end. Why bother filing real estate we're not going to need anyway? It's getting there. The keyway needs to be a little wider. I don't think it needs to be any deeper. I almost wouldn't know that from factory, but it's still not wide enough. I almost feel like filing the key in here a little bit, but it's, you know, it's also at an angle with a radius there. I mean, how do you approach that? Well, we're that far on. Yeah, that took way too long. But we're good. This is the way it's gonna ride. The sprocket out. Beautiful. Looks pretty good, huh? I think so. Now this sprocket's good too because it has set screws, which usually they depend on you threading a bolt in here. I've already cut off part of the shaft. I think I'm going to leave the rest sticking out. I kind of like it that way for, like, if the chain guard can kind of like bounce off it rather than bouncing off the chain or whatever, you know. So another thing about this sprocket is that there's more teeth on it. I think a couple more than the other small sprockets. So that is a reason to step down on the jack shaft to that smaller sprocket that goes from the jack shaft to the rear wheel. Hopefully that'll justify it. We've got a little oil down here in between for the bushing. Moves real smooth. Well, so far things look pretty good. We have room enough for the throttle now because of the cutout. Pushing back the stabilizer, we've cleared for the carburetor, although I don't have the engine bolted down. That's true. That might be some reality there. The air filter I took off the other, yeah, this is all I got. I think will work. It'll just make it if I turn it upside down. So I guess the next thing to do is get some bolts in the engine and get it down. Another thing I'm thinking of, once I bolt down this jack shaft, the truing of it is actually going to change. It's probably going to flex, you know, that bottom plate one way or the other and move these arms a little bit. So hopefully I left a little bit of adjustment here so that I can make them as square as possible. So let's get some bolts in the engine anyway. Rear bolts are in, and yeah, we just make it. Haha. Good. As you build, you get these thoughts like, okay, this was a snowblower engine. It never had an air filter on it. So is this thing going to run like rich because now it has an air filter on it? Another thing I noticed is that this unit here should really clamp the cable in front here, not back here. Although I can probably compensate for that somehow. But it would make the cable come at a bit of an angle. Not much, you know, you're probably not even going to notice it, but one thing is, if it isn't an angle, it's going to have a tendency to tug this thing. You know what I mean? Over time, so, you know, suddenly you don't have full throttle. So something to think about. I'd much rather have it run this way, but yeah, there's nothing over here. So we'll come up with something. Engine is bolted in. Well, it's loose, finger tight. Got the fuel. This was a better way to hitch it up, you know, because it comes off the petcock facing forward, so that's kind of nice. I put a zip tie right here just to keep things in place. Put a fuel barb in here because they don't have any more gas line, but that'll suffice. Yeah, now it's going to be alignment, which is painful to watch, and I won't put you through that. The engine will wiggle back and forth a little bit. The holes are a little elongated in all sorts of weird ways. It's, you know, I guess it's good because you got some wiggle room, but once you find out what's straight, you got to crank this thing down and leave it that way. And yeah, that's, I think, what's next. I'd rather do something fun though. Maybe hitch up the throttle or something. I'm sure it would be nice to use a new cable, but yeah, we don't have one. Yeah, over time this will straighten out, I think. And you have to do some adjustment, but obviously you can do adjustment here. I'm just hoping this doesn't slip. This cable didn't have the metal cap on it, which is nice to crush against those little barbs right there. Rear chain is definitely going to be more slack now because I have a smaller sprocket in here. I think it's a 10 or 11 tooth. I'm not quite sure what. But hopefully we won't have to take a link out of the chain. However, the front one, since there's more teeth on this sprocket, yeah, we got to add a link. And with all my messing around with this, getting things to work, this chain already has another master link in it. So, I got to see what I got for chain. And, you know, I'm not going to put 3 master links in this. Or maybe I am, who knows. Okay, I think I'm done for the day. Got a kill switch hitched up. Wire runs up here. Ground's over there. Gas line's hitched up. Got the engine bolted down tight. Got the jack shaft bolted down tight. Got things in alignment. With the new clutch, you're definitely going to have to deal with whatever size space you got going here. There's no adjustment there. And we got a little too much slack in the chain. I'm going to have to make some kind of chain tensioner. And that's about the only thing I got. It's a piece of crap. Put it kind of like this. Be able to bolt it into the jack shaft, luckily enough. But I don't have a way to do the tension. You know, it needs one of those, I guess it's a tension spring. It's called, it's kind of like a scissory job, you know, with a round thing there. Yeah, we'll come up with something for that. Alright, this is what I've come up with so far for the tensioner. It is a tensioner. I stuck another nylon washer inside here, so it's got a little bit of slop, but not like too much. I drilled out this bushing that I had and found a good nut that fits pretty tight in there. A couple of washers and a lock nut here. And we're going to bolt them on like this, about 2 inches up. I drilled a hole for a spring. Don't have the spring yet, but I think we'll safety wire the springs on. Is this gear ratio going to work? I mean, like, look at that back wheel. Oh, there's no keying. I forgot. Okay. I'm still wondering, is the gear ratio going to work? Okay, next, I got to work on the back brake. Yeah, I got one hitched up. Yeah, it works, but that's a bit of a throw. I'd rather have it be like that. And of course, you can do that here. At the same on the same thought, I would like to get a brake lever on the handlebars to so that I don't have to just use the foot too. And I was thinking if I brought a cable down this way, stopped it there, ran the cable up, drilled another hole, put a stop on this side, then it might work. And obviously I could drill something into that, so that's what I'm thinking about right now. I'd really like to have that. So this is where I'm at conceptually right now. For focus, I found one of these, cable adjuster. And my first thought was to put something down on the engine mount plate, but now I'm thinking the jack shaft might be a better idea. Come off at an angle like that, and need to drill a hole right below where the other cable is. I don't know if you can see that. I can't fucking see it. Right down below there, and put a cable stop there, which I don't think would interfere with anything. No, wouldn't. Right underneath there. And yeah, I think this is actually plausible. And going through my junk, of course, I find that spring I was looking for the chain tensioner. So maybe I'll put this back in, maybe I won't. I got a standard L bracket here. Made the dots where I want to drill. Yeah, I was able to makeshift a cable. Unfortunately, it's got this end on it. Might have to beef that up somehow. But I found something out. I have to use 2 pieces of cable here, sheathing. In the past, I've tried to use this stuff, and or when you cut off a cable, the cable gets kind of crushed, and then you can't pass the cable itself through the sheath. What I just used was a cutoff wheel, and I cut like really slowly going through it so it wouldn't crush or distort anything, and it made the ends rather decent. What was just a conception, I think, can actually happen. I'm pretty amazed. Yeah, we got a cable coming out right here. We need to drill a hole right down here and put the cable stop in there. That's kind of awkward, but it's what I got to do. There is a flaw to this design, like when you hit the back brake with the foot pedal, the handlebar lever is going to go slack, and vice versa. How do you compensate for that? Well, I'm not gonna, I guess. I just hope it doesn't screw things up somehow. You know, there'll be no cable tension, so maybe something will pop out of place or something. You know, that's not a good thing. Well, it may look good, but I tightened up the rear brake so that that's much better play right there. And you can see that the control, it just doesn't have enough oomph and it moves. I don't think the pivot down here gives it enough energy to pull the whole thing forward like that. It's like, you know, you kind of need another hole up here, which I'm a little reluctant to do. It's almost like I'd like to share this hole, but then, you know, you kind of got a mess there too. And this thing kind of flexes a bit too much. Or maybe not. I mean, maybe it'd be alright if you had the pulling power that you do at the top. Well, actually, the brake is kind of working. You got to give it a damn good squeeze, though. That'll work. Nice. Well, my cheap bicycle brake couldn't handle pulling in that the load of the rear brake, so yeah, not moving ahead very well today. My new spring on the throttle. If I can reach the throttle. Snapping back the way I like it to snap back. And I cut down the throttle cable too. Let me get the light down here. So that it's a much, you know, it doesn't have that kink in it anymore either. Looks like my throttle setup was a little bit inadequate. The cable slipped. I gave the throttle a good crank. And yeah, the cable just slipped right down. The sheathing right down to here. So I'm not holding it tight enough here. And I started to think the clamp, which is here, is made for it. You know, it's got like little barbs on it. Kind of, you can barely feel them. But it's not enough. So, in addition to that, I came up with this as a solution. This is going to, I drilled a hole there. It's going to sit like this. So when it's screwed down, it'll have this shelf up here. It'll kind of hold it in place. Drilled a hole right there for the cable to go through. And then I got to drill another hole over here so that it matches up with that. So like, not only do I get the clamp, but I got the shelf too. I'm also going to cut a groove into this so you don't have to thread the cable through. And this part goes over like that. They both bolt on there, and that clamps it, and that holds it from going anyplace. Okay, that's going to work. This plate flexes a little more than I would like it to, but I should have put a backing or something on that, and I hate to say maybe I still will. But it should work. Oh, I didn't show my secret weapon. Look at that. I'm not telling you anything about that. It's top secret.